Hey, welcome everybody to Cache Canada Chat. Sorry about that. We had a bit of an audio issue. We're going to fix that up for you, and then we're going to share that right away. And we want to welcome you to Cache Canada Chats, and we're going to be talking about Adventure Labs and how they relate to Cachetur, because we have a special guest with us today, and he's going to be talking about putting the caches into a route into Cachetur and bringing that to you, and we're going to have a lot of learning to do. So right now I want you to enjoy just a little bit of a video. We're going to share that with you right now, and then I've got it all set back up again, so here we go. On today's episode of Cache Canada, we're taking you on geocaching's newest feature, the Adventure Lab. And Lyric Lass and I are here to check out the Adventure Lab. It has 10 stages, and we want to make sure you get the most out of it. So we're going to tell you all about doing an Adventure Lab coming up next.
The Geocaching Adventure Lab app is a new way for geocachers to find and log lab caches.
Lab caches are an experimental geocache type often played at mega events. The caches count toward your geocaching statistics and total finds. Unlike other types of caches, lab caches do not have a container and can also be located indoors. Adventure Labs are only available on a smartphone and can be played on either an iPhone or an Android. The app can be found at either the App Store or Google Play.
Well, let's hope that that was the only fault of the show today. As they said in the Apollo 13 mission when the center engine cut off, we hope that that was our only glitch of the mission. So we'll just be moving on. That was a preview, or that was the first half of our very first episode that we ever did for Adventure Labs, and that was from Grand Rapids, obviously. And you can find that video in the Geocaching Adventure Lab app under the Discover tab. GCHQ was so enamored with it, they put it on the app, and it is there with one from Behind the Cache. Rick Baker does one as well on how to use the app. And I see that something is missing from our broadcast right now. We are missing our co-host, Lyric Lass. There she
Hello.
is. How are you doing today?
Very well. And you guys?
Well, we don't have our guest yet. It's just me and you and everybody else that's watching. So we got out today and did some geocaching, but we didn't do an Adventure Lab, though. We passed one. We should have stopped because we had the dog with us. It was a dog park adventure lab, and I'm sure maybe we'll do an episode on that. We'll take Blake out. Yeah, we'll get there. We're trying to be careful of what we're doing throughout this COVID lockdown. We're sticking within our own health unit. So we went to a park in the northern part of London, which we don't get to very often. We live in the south, and we don't move up to the north very often. So we want to thank our sponsors, right? That's right, Karen. You saw all the gifts and prizes that we have to offer. It is an amazing set. Yep. So we want to share with you the prizes that have been donated and the rules that are going to apply for today's show on how you can win. So join us right now. We're going to show you that, and then we'll carry on. We would like to thank those who donated prizes for today's show. From IB Geocaching, 3 prize packs. From the Cacher's Corner Store, a mystery prize bag. And from Cache Canada, a Cache Canada trackable. And from Cachetur.no, a Cachetur trackable. And from Geocaching HQ, an Adventure Lab. And there are 3 ways to win. You can comment in the live chat, be the first to answer a trivia question, or leave a comment on YouTube. Now let's get on with the show. And there we go. There's some awesome prizes there. We're
Yeah.
really
So
happy.
so what do we do with leaving a chat on comment on the chat line?
Right. So what we're going to do is during the chat or during the broadcast, as we see chats come up, those people are automatically entered into the contest. So we're going to be doing some of the prizes live as we go along. Two of the prizes are going to be given away by a trivia question, one from Cash Canada and one from our special guest today. And then the grand prizes, which are the Cachetur.no travel tag and the Adventure Lab, will be given by collecting all of the comments that are posted live, and then all those that are posted on YouTube once this video gets posted, and we'll probably do that within about a week. So we want to make sure a lot of people have chances to enter into the contest. So
That sounds great. You lots of ways to win.
Yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in our special guest and introduce him. And we want to bring in and introduce you, and we'll let him tell you all about himself. Here is Dougie B.
Hello.
Hi, Doug.
Hello. Good evening, everyone.
And how are you doing?
How are you doing?
Awesome.
Keeping,
So tell us.
keeping warm.
Trying to. I've got my sweating to the oldies hoodie on, so I'm definitely keeping warm tonight.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself and let everybody know who you are and how you come to be all about geocaching or Adventure Labs.
Sure thing. So my caching name is Dougie B. My real name is Doug Belanger. I live in Brampton, Ontario, which is just northwest of Toronto for those who are outside our local viewing area. I've been caching since 2010, and I've been doing Adventure Labs since the very first lab caches were published at mega events. Oh boy, going back to what, 2015, I think, 2014, something like that. To date, I have lost track over how many Adventure Labs I've done, something in the neighborhood of 250 plus Adventure Labs and approximately 1,600 lab finds. Most of my Adventure Labs have been in the Ontario area, but I've done some in Michigan, some at mega events outside of Ontario, and it's just something that I really gravitated to when they came out. I was quite excited about the experimental nature of Adventure Labs. I was quite enamored with the fact that it used some interesting technology. It reminded me a lot of virtuals, of where it goes, and lately with the ones that started coming out a few years ago of multis, and I really threw myself into it. I got quite involved in initially tracking Adventure Labs where they were throughout North America. I maintained a map for about a year until it just got to be too much to maintain, and I have then thrown myself into planning for my own trips. So it's not uncommon for me to go out and do, 5, 10 Adventure Labs in a day. My maximum that I've done is 16 Adventure Labs in one day.
That's a lot.
And yeah, it is. And
Takes a lot of planning.
It certainly does, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is how to plan for a day trip or a multi-day trip like that, when you're looking at a lot of Adventure Labs where they cross over each other, and when you want to throw in other geocaches as well, because we all still enjoy doing other caches like virtuals and webcams and earth caches and all those other lovely caches that are out there. So I guess, Dave, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, we started chatting about this stream.
Yep.
And one of the impetuses was Dave and Karen had gone to Belleville, and they had been doing some Adventure Labs in Belleville, and found that if they just did each Adventure Lab one at a time, that they were going back and forth across the city, and crossing spots where they had been to previously. And I said to Dave, I've got a way to use Cachetur to help solve that problem.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it is. It really does help a lot, and it helps you focus on your day, on what you want to do, on how much time you have to do it in, and where you want to end up. So today, what I'd like to talk to everybody about is how we create a Cachetur trip, how we get the coordinates for the Adventure Lab locations into Cachetur,
Yep.
how we add things like geocaches, ways to sort and optimize these waypoints once they're in Cachetur so you have the best route, how to share this Cachetur plan with somebody else, because it's always more fun sharing with somebody else when you're geocaching.
Yep.
And then using the Cachetur smartphone app to actually execute this plan on the day of your trip.
Nice.
And when we go through this today, the tools that I'll be using will be the cachetur.no website, the Adventure Lab app on the smartphone, Google Maps on both the smartphone and the computer, the geocaching website to look up geocaches, and the Cachetur smartphone app.
Nice. And whoop. So that sounds pretty good. We tried this out a couple of weeks ago, and I was amazed at what you were showing me. I was like blown away. And I hope people have had some experience with Cachetur. It looks very difficult. When you first look at it, it looks hard, but it's not that bad. At least I had some exposure to it, having planned some road trips using Cachetur. So we're really looking forward to what you're going to be showing us tonight. So, but just before we get going, we want to give away our first prize. I have a winner already. All right, so is everybody ready?
Yep.
Good. Okay, so our first winner, just let me bring this up, there we go. What I did was I took while Doug was talking and he went into solo mode, I took the first winner from everyone that had commented so far who's watching the show, and I came up with the first winner is Butterfly Girl. So congratulations. She wins the first package from IB Geocaching. Pete sent along 3 great little packages. So we want to thank Butterfly Girl. And Butterfly Girl, yeah, congratulations. If you, we'll be in contact with you, but it would be better if you sent us an email to londonwesty@gmail.com. Just let me know that you've won the first prize, and I'll get your information from that. So. All right, so here we go. Before we move on into Dougie's presentation, we just want to talk a few things about some tips and tricks. So hang on there for just a sec. So when people went on to geocaching, I see this on the geocaching Facebook page. A lot of people comment about, hey, how do I do this new Adventure Lab thing? So just for those people that might catch this video either watching live now or catch it later as it's published, I just wanted to share a few things that we have to go. So here we go. We're going to share. This is a little program I got up here. So it's to show you different things about geocaching. So we're going to launch into that, and we can talk about. And if Karen and Doug, if you have some things to pop in for, let us know, and we're going to do some of the basic stuff. So first thing is, where do you find the Adventure Lab? Well, obviously from our video that we showed, go to your Google Play or App Store and you'll be able to download that app. It's fairly simple. Once you download the app, you'll be asked to log in. Use your login ID from GC, and you're using your name and password. So if you use the same name and password, you'll be getting into that right away. So does that make sense? There we go. It's so simple, but people ask, well, how do I do this? One of the little things that we've learned is caps are not required. So you do not need to go proper English and put in caps. The app will recognize small letters.
And that's despite what an Adventure Lab owner might put in their question. Sometimes you'll see the question that says answer in all caps. It's absolutely not necessary.
That's correct. Yeah. So maybe that will help with some owners of Adventure Labs going forward. That's something that you don't need to do.
It also makes it easier to put the answer in the freezing cold weather.
Yes,
True enough.
with those cold fingers. And the next one, I learned this just recently, and I'm not sure. I think it was Doug that you told me this. Spaces are not required.
That's correct.
Yeah, so you can have a 4-word answer, and you do not need to put the spaces in. I did not know that.
Again, it helps when it's cold, right, Karen?
That's right.
Yep.
Got to keep the fingers warm.
And our next little item is read the descriptions.
Oh, we get stuck on that one so many times.
Yes, it's very, very important. As Doug noted to me in a note, that a lot of times you might be in an adventure lab and some of the answers that you need are actually in the descriptions. And we've noted that when we have done some adventure labs, we've gone out and just kind of raced through them and not really read them. But recently, we've actually started to read them a lot more. There's some really good information in there. It really tells you, it fleshes out more of the experience that you're having. So
There's often a lot of history, too, about the area or where you're visiting.
Some of the best adventure labs are when an adventure lab owner puts something together that they're passionate about. And that really comes through in the description of both the adventure lab and the locations. And
Yes.
if you read that, you'll really understand why that cache owner put that together. And then to your point, Dave, beyond that, a lot more frequently, I've been seeing descriptions that not only contain information necessary to answer the question, but in at least one case, information relative to a bonus cache. So often
Yes.
that information is in a journal, but sometimes it's in the description. So
Yeah.
please read the description. It only takes a few seconds, and it really enhances the experience.
That's true. All right, the next one that I have is from Doug as well. I didn't know if I knew this one or not, but the location photo that is listed on the Adventure Lab page, if you click on or just touch the photo, it'll open it up into a more detailed version. And sometimes there will be information. It might help you find the next location, or there might be hints and clues, or even in some cases a trackable number hidden within that photo.
That's right. It's very simple to do when you're in one of the locations in an adventure lab. Just touch that photo at the top, and it will bring it up as big as it can on your screen, and you can zoom in and look all around the photo. It's often great to help to determine where you need to go to get the answer, and sometimes the answer is actually contained in the photo.
That's true. We have done, I think, 2 adventure labs that had that instance in it. Route to the location is Google Maps. Some people don't know that when you click on the location, there's a little arrow, a little blue arrow kind of goes to the right and up, I think. If you click that, it'll take you to Google Maps and will actually route you to the next location. This is really handy when you're driving, when it's a driving route from location to location.
The other little point about that one, Dave, is when you're driving, if you have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and you have your phone connected, so when you route from the Adventure Lab to Google Maps or Apple Maps, it can actually come up on the screen of your car if you've got that kind of capability. So you can do true hands-free navigation right to your Adventure Lab location.
Yes. And if you're a paying member of Project GC, you can get a list of your Adventure Lab finds, order location dates, along with Lab Cache's found dates grid, and just go to Project GC Profile Stats and click on the Lab Caches tab. So that's pretty cool.
Just a note for everybody there. This is something that any paying member of Project GC can get, but you can also, if you wish, you can disable this from being shared. So if you have privacy concerns, you can absolutely ensure that nobody else can see this. That's a capability.
Nice. And another item we have, there we go. you can look up all your Adventure Lab finds from a web browser. Go to this URL, log in using the same account as you use for your Adventure Lab app. So you can see all of your Adventure Lab finds.
This list will also include any lab caches that you did before they were called Adventure Labs. So if you did any lab caches at a mega event or a giga event in the past, all of those will be listed here as well.
Nice. That's nice. I'm sure somebody can create maybe a challenge cache from that, possibly.
That's a good idea.
I'm sure you could create a challenge cache based on the bonus attribute, but I'm not sure that you can create a challenge cache based on Adventure Labs. I think that's restricted.
Okay, we'll have to talk to a reviewer. I have
so
one of those on speed dial.
The challenge is to get an answer to that question.
Yeah, okay. We'll look into that one. And that is that. There we go. And there we go. So here we are, and we're going to do another trivia question. And this one is based on the person that's whining in the background. I can hear him whining. He wants a snack. He never likes us when we go on live. So here we go. So our next trivia question. Okay, we need both Doug and Karen to watch the. Okay, you can't see. If you can't see it,
I can't see
if you're
it.
not okay, you can't see it. I can see it. I'm going to be watching very carefully for the answer to this trivia question. Okay, don't blurt it out. Okay, we're going to go to banners. There we go. And trivia question. Okay, here we go. This is for a Cache Canada trackable. That was what this prize will be. And here is the trivia question. I'm watching the comments live on YouTube. I have that off to the side. And what is the name of our geodog? I think I must have just said it.
No, you didn't.
Oh,
You
didn't I?
didn't.
Okay,
No.
I didn't. Okay. So somebody that watches us should know, or anybody who has us on Facebook or whatever. Oh, there we go. I think Lorraine Seguin just answered first. We will make sure we have Michelle Little, Tracy Hubert, Albedo39. He's one of our patrons. Scooter. Scooter the Wonder Dog.
That's
And
a good
Brent
name.
Mackey also. Yeah, Brent. We got lots of good answers, but I think who was it? Lorraine Seguin. She's a good friend of ours from Team JL2. All right, congratulations. I will make sure that is correct. I think everybody
Did you
can.
say his name now?
Blake. Our dog's name is Blake. Yes, and he is appearing in some of our videos recently. Lorraine was the JL. Geocats, Jay and Ella. Geocats said Lorraine was the first. Awesome. Okay. Cache the line.
Congratulations, Lorraine.
Yes, congratulations. We'll get that cash off to you. Actually, I know where you live, so we'll probably deliver that in the mailbox personally. Just pop it in there. No contact needed. So, all right. So we're going to move on to our presentation from Dougie B, and I hope everybody has their thinking caps on, because this one is going to blow you away. All right. So, Doug, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you. So I will be doing a live presentation as soon as I figure out how to do a live presentation. Help me out here, Dave.
Okay, you have to share your screen. We did this.
It's on the bottom.
There it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
share screen.
Screen 2. So everybody let me know when you can see screen 2.
It takes me to add it, so I have added it.
It's flashing.
It's flashing.
There
we go,
it
it's
is.
better. Still flashing. Somewhat.
Interesting.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes, that's much better. Okay, what I'm going to do, there we go. There. I'm going to take us away. And I'm going to take the banner away, so everybody can see exactly what's going on. So take it away, Doug.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave and Karen. So I'm going to be doing a bit of a live demonstration today, again, using the tools that we talked about earlier. Just to reiterate, we're going to create a Cachetur trip. So you can see here on the main page that I've got cachetur.no loaded up. If you want to follow along, please go to cachetur.no and log in. Make sure that you're logged in with your geocaching credentials. You can see mine over here. And it syncs up to your geocaching account. After we've created a trip, then we're going to be going over to the Adventure Lab app, which you can see here on my screen. And we'll be getting lab location coordinates. We'll then be doing add of those coordinates to the trip, and we're using a tool called the Bulk Add Waypoints tool to make it simple to load up a lot of waypoints all at once. We'll also put some geocaches into our trip, and then we're going to sort it, we're going to optimize it, we're going to share it, and then we're going to use the Cachetur smartphone app to take a look at how to actually run that trip when you're out in the field. Now, for today's demonstration, I was asking Dave, give me a place where you would like to see some Adventure Labs that have a little bit of complexity so that we can actually plan this trip. So we can show Adventure Labs that sort of cross over each other and have waypoints that you would be going from one lab to the next lab to the next lab and switching back and forth between adventures in order to get them done in the most optimized way. Mm-hmm. So we've decided to use Kitchener as our demonstration. And as you can see on the screen, there are quite a few Adventure Labs in Kitchener. Now, to keep things straightforward, I am not going to put in every location from every Adventure Lab in Kitchener. Yeah. What I will do is I'm going to show you how to put in a start and stop location. We're going to put in locations from, I think, 5 Adventure Labs that actually cover quite a few number of locations. So I think we have 35 different locations.
Yeah, this is an area that we went to. Karen and I went to this area, and we had done a couple. But I noticed, and there's the 5 that are right close, right in the middle there. They overlap like a lot, and to try and figure it out on the fly would be. You could do it. It would just be a lot simpler in this method. And I encourage people, I'm going to take us back out. Occasionally I'll put us in and every now and then if we have a comment. But I encourage everybody to put this into full screen if you haven't already to make sure that you can see this well.
Okay. To your point, Dave, so I just zoomed in on one of these Adventure Labs in Kitchener. And you can see that this particular Adventure Lab has 5 locations that are laid out a little bit around Kitchener. And if we choose another adventure, mm-hmm. a different one, you can see that it has also, in this case, 5 that are located throughout Kitchener. And we've actually got one Adventure Lab that has 15 locations.
15
locations
15
that are spread out between the cities of Kitchener and Waterloo. So you can see on this screen where those 15 locations are. And if you're trying to get a number of Adventure Labs done in one day, and they're all spread out, and they all interact with each other and intersect each other, this is where the power of Cachetur and particularly the bulk waypoint tool mm-hmm. is going to help you out.
Yep.
All right.
Awesome.
So let's get to it.
Okay,
so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a Cachetur trip. So I've logged into the main page of Cachetur. I click on trips and I create a new trip. And it's pretty straightforward. We just give it a name. So this is going to be our Cache Canada day trip to Kitchener. We're going to make this a car trip because that's the best way to do these particular set of Adventure Labs. And our destination is going to be Kitchener, Ontario. Now you don't have to put in a date or a time. You can decide those things later. And you don't have to put in a duration or a length, but I often put in a trip description. So in this case, this will be Dave and Karen's big adventure. If only I could
Just to
type.
bring you up to speed on that as he's typing that in, he's creating this adventure lab or this trip, but he's not going to share it with us. We have to pay attention to this video because after this, we need to create this exact same tour that he's showing you, and we need to go out and experience that and report back on it.
Yes, that was the challenge that I gave Dave. I said, I'm not going to give this to you. You're going to have to do it on your own to prove that you actually learned how to make a trip and how to get the coordinates and how to optimize it. So
there
Okay,
won't be any stress at all.
The
No
challenge
pressure.
is on.
No pressure. Hey, the beauty is you'll have a video you can go back and refer to it,
Yeah.
as can
That's
all of our
correct.
That's
watchers.
awesome.
The only other tip that I'll give you at the bottom here is where it says participants. So if you're going to share your trip with other people, you put in the number of participants that you're going to share it with. So that can be any number. And once you've created the trip and you've optimized it, then you can go in and give the geocaching name of the person that you want to share the trip with. They'll get an email. They'll be able to log into Cachetur and see the trip, print out a trip report, or alternately download it to their mobile for the Cachetur app. All right. There are a lot more things that you can do with Cachetur, but for the purposes of our discussion today around doing a day trip for adventure labs and geocaches, this is pretty much all you need to know to create a trip. And we save the trip. Okay. Now we have a trip called Cache Canada Day Trip to Kitchener. And you can see in here that there are no waypoints on this trip at this point. There's really not a lot of other information in here yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to add that information. Now the key to Cachetur in terms of trip planning is to give it information about the various stops that you want to make along the way. You could add geocaches by putting GC numbers in there. You could add other waypoints like parking or stops for food or places to rest by putting in information like coordinates and names. But you can also put in lab caches. So I'm going to show you, if you want to do just one, you can click on Add a Waypoint, and right down here, it has information that you can add a lab cache. That's the type of waypoint that we're going to add. And what it wants to know is a name. So you would give it a name, the coordinates for the location, and a comment. All right. So at this point, obviously, we don't have any waypoints for our caches. So we have to go and get those waypoints, and that's perhaps the most time-consuming part of planning a trip, is actually getting those waypoints. Now, I'm going to throw out something here that I just learned in the last couple of days, and I haven't tried it out myself yet. I will be trying it out over the next few weeks. So what I'm going to show you today is a very straightforward way to do it. It's a little time-consuming, but I understand that there is now a GCHQ macro that you can use to pull some lab coordinate information into GCHQ.
Yeah,
And-
I've heard that, and I saw that listed on the Adventure Lab Cache's Facebook page. But I have used GCHQ, but not very much. I find it very difficult, and I don't have the time to learn it. But between geocaching and vlogging, there's just no, and working, there's just no time to learn it. But yeah, carry on, because there are a lot of people that we know that use GCHQ, so it's good information.
Yeah, I agree, Dave. I'm also not a large GCHQ user, so I didn't want to try and throw that into today's presentation because I haven't tried it myself. I haven't perfected the technique. I don't know what it's like getting the coordinates out of GCHQ and into Cachetur. So I'll just mention it for now. There are alternate ways to get coordinates, and maybe that'll be the topic of a future conversation with Dave. But for today, we're going to use some tried and true methods.
And perhaps somebody that's watching, I see a comment already from Jay Mackey that if they if anybody wants to come on and do this likewise version of this show using GSAC, we're willing to have you. So carry on.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to my Adventure Lab app, and I'm going to choose one of these Adventure Labs and show you two ways to get coordinates. So this particular one that I'm using, I hope everyone can see it on the left. It's pre-Confederation Kitchener at Tour.
Yep.
Okay. And if I go down here and I click on the map and zoom in, I can see where these locations are. So there's two ways that I can get the actual coordinates. One way is to sort of eyeball these locations. So let's look at this first location. It's called the Jacob Y. Shantz Residence, 1856. And it's at the corner.
This is the London Westie method.
This is the London Westie method. It's at the corner of Ottawa Street and Maurice Street in Kitchener. So what I'm going to do is bring up my Google Maps on my computer. And I'm going to go to Ottawa Street in Kitchener. And I guess I can actually do Ottawa and Maurice, right? Right. So there's Ottawa Street and Maurice Street in Kitchener, and that's a pretty good approximation of where it is. So in Google Maps on your computer, you can right-click on the spot, and it comes up and it gives you coordinates. Now these aren't in the same format that we use for geocaching, but for Cachetur, it does not matter. So once you've right-clicked, you can then left-click on the coordinates, and it says down here that they're copied to the clipboard. So if I was in Cachetur, so I've switched back, and I just wanted to add one waypoint, I could go in here and add my lab cache, and I could call it the Jacob Y. Shantz Residence 1856. Give it the coordinates that I've copied, and this is from the pre-Confederation Kitchener Adventure Lab. I can add that waypoint, and there it is. The waypoint's now been added to my trip. You can see that it's got the lab cache icon. You can see it's got the information that I typed in for the waypoint name. It's converted those coordinates to a format that we're more familiar with, and it's got my comment of pre-Confederation Kitchener. You can also see down here on the map that it has added this waypoint at the right location, and it's got
Nice.
that lab icon, and it's got a number. So all the waypoints will have a number. All right. So just to summarize again, this is one way for getting the waypoints. You use your Adventure Lab app to eyeball where that location is. Then you use your Google map to find that location. You right-click to get the coordinate. You copy it to your clipboard, and then you can enter it into Cachetur.
Nice.
I think I can handle that.
Okay. So
Right,
I'm gonna
right clip, copy, and paste.
there you go. So I'm gonna pause there and see if there's any questions that came up on the chats.
In the chats, they're talking about a lot about the GSAC. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
I
it
see
sounds
that-
like there is a future show coming up.
Yes, I think so.
Good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Because I'd be happy to learn about that as well. And if it is what I think it is, it might make this even quicker to plan.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So we've done this one way, which is using Google Maps on the computer. I'm going to delete this waypoint. All right. And then we're going to do it again. But this time, I'm going to switch back to my my Android phone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to use that little blue arrow to navigate, and I'm going to use Google Maps to navigate to on my phone. So apologies, I have a very old Android phone, so it's kind of slow. So it's now found the exact coordinates that were put into the Adventure Lab location. And as you can see down here, it shows you those coordinates. So if we wanted to, we could add a lab waypoint.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we could call it, the Chance House, whatever it was. And we could type in those coordinates
Yeah, there was a comment about approximate coordinates. When you do a coordinate location, you're just picking up an approximate location like at a street corner. And basically, you don't need the exact coordinates of the Adventure Lab location. All you need is their approximate to get you there. Once you're there, then you'll use the Adventure Lab to actually navigate to the location.
Yes, that's correct. So an approximation works for navigation purposes to get you to the location. And to Dave's point, once you're there, you're going to be opening up your Adventure Lab app. You're going to be selecting the Adventure Lab that you're going to. You're going to be selecting the location that you're going to. And then you use the navigation feature on the Adventure Lab app, either to link to your map, or you're probably close enough that you could just use the compass and the heading information to get right to the GZ.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So again, in this case, what I've done is I've got the exact coordinates from the Adventure Lab app. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to cut and paste from my phone to my Cachetur.no website. But if I was doing this on my phone, I could copy and paste, and we just add that waypoint in, and away it goes. So we've got, again, a lab cache with the name that I've given it. We've got converted coordinates and the comment. Okay.
Nice.
So 2 different ways to get the coordinates. If you want to be really accurate, you can use the navigate feature on your phone, or if you're like Karen and Dave, and you want it to be a little bit quicker, you can use Google Maps, approximate where you're going, and that will help you out to get you really close. Now, I need to throw up a red flag so that everybody is really aware of something. There are yes, there are obviously 2 kinds of Adventure Labs. There are those that are do in any order, and there are those that are linear. So if you find a linear Adventure Lab that you want to go to, this second method that I showed you of using the navigate feature on your phone will not work for anything except the very first location of that linear Adventure Lab. Mm-hmm. You cannot navigate to the other locations of that Adventure Lab because they're grayed out. You can't touch them in the Adventure Lab app and navigate to them. So for anything that has a linear-based Adventure Lab, the first method that I show you of approximating, eyeballing where that is on the Adventure Lab map, and then going over to your computer and using Google Maps, that will be the way to get you close from a navigation perspective.
And that's all you need to do is to get close. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing to mention, I guess, about linear Adventure Labs is, unless you have some information that that isn't listed in the Adventure Lab, you won't know what order they're done in. So you have to have a little bit of flexibility when you're doing linear Adventure Labs to be able to adapt to the order that they're being done in. Usually you can guess what order they're in, and many times they're obvious, the order that they're going to be done in, but not in every case. Sometimes you can ask the cache owner, the Adventure Lab owner, what order they're done in, and the Adventure Lab owner will tell you. Or you can ask somebody who's previously done the Adventure Lab, and they might remember and give you some insight. but it does make planning a little bit more challenging if you don't know the order that those linear adventure labs are done in.
Right.
Okay. So to make things simple for the rest of our demonstration, and just to get people into using Cachetur for this kind of planning, I'm not going to use any linear adventures in today's demonstration.
Okay.
Okay. Everything that I'm going to be doing is do in any order, and what that facilitates is leveraging the optimize tool within Cachetur.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So again, I'm going to pause there at the end of the section on Adventure Lab coordinates and see if there's any questions.
There's a comment here, and I think you're going to come up to that next. It was from Jason Collier, talked about Cachetur bulk ad requires that you paste the information for up to 300 waypoints at a time. So you haven't gotten to that yet. So that's what your next part is bulk ad?
That's an excellent segue from, it was Jason, right?
Yeah, Jason Collier. Yeah.
Thank you, Jason Collier. Yes, that's actually the next bit of our conversation. So obviously putting these things in one at a time can be quite time consuming. And what I tend to do is I create a list of the locations and geocaches that I want to go to. What I'm going to do right now is show you the bulk waypoint tool. So I clicked on waypoint up at the top in Cachetur, and then I come down here to where it says bulk add waypoints, and I click on that, and it brings up a little information screen. So what it says is this feature allows you to bulk add waypoints. It's important that you use the correct format. Semicolon is the only valid separator. So here it tells you that there's basically 3 formats that you can use in any line. If you have a geocache, you can just put the geocache code in. If you have a geocache and you have corrected coordinates, you can put in the corrected coordinates and a comment. Or if you don't have a geocache, you can use this format that is the waypoint name with a semicolon, the waypoint type with a semicolon, the coordinates with a semicolon, and the comment. Now it's important that that you actually put in all 4 sections. So for example, if you were to put in a waypoint name and a waypoint type and coordinates but no comment, you would still need to have that last semicolon. All right.
This is what you showed me in the demo, and I want people to make sure they watch this. It looked like really complicated to me with the semicolons and the 4 sections, but it's listed right there on Cachetur. It tells you how to do it, and if you do this in a Word document, so you create everything that you're creating your trip from that, and then you're going to just basically copy that and then put it in as your bulk. So I want people to make sure you watch this. It is amazing.
And we're gonna demonstrate that in a second.
Yep.
So here we show what the available waypoint types are. And one of the available waypoint types is lab cache. So we will be entering lab cache information. The other information is parking or meeting points. We're actually going to be putting in some of that information too. So to Dave's point, what I'm going to do is bring up my WordPad, and you can see that I've actually created a little WordPad document that has some start and stop location information in it. It has some caches that we want to do on our trip. These are highly favorited caches that I've selected. And then it has information about the Adventure Lab locations. So what I've done is I've gone into, so for example, here's the one that we just showed on the screen. I've gone and I've found those coordinates. I've created one line for it. I've given it a code. So in this case, it's Cache Canada Kitchener, pre for pre-Confederation, and then a number 01 for stage 1, a semicolon. I've put the word lab in, followed by a semicolon. I've put the coordinates in, and again, they don't have to be in this format, as long as it's a format that Cachetur can convert from. And then I put a description in, which is in this case, I put the name of the location, a hyphen, and the name of the Adventure Lab. And you can see that I've done that for all 5 locations of pre-Confederation Kitchener. Okay. And then you can see that I've continued to do that with other Adventure Labs. So here is the Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest Adventure Lab locations. Then I did the Kitchener-Waterloo Street Art, the Ultimate Sacrifice, Kitchener-Waterloo Heroes, and then the big one, the one with 15 locations, KW Trains Art and History.
15.
15 locations.
15.
Yep. So, all in all, we have, I think, 43 waypoints that we're going to put into Cachetur.
Nice.
Now, right now, those waypoints, so if you recall, when we were looking at the Adventure Lab app, we looked at that Kitchener-Waterloo Trains Adventure Lab, you could see that those 15 locations were all up and down throughout Kitchener, as were some of the other Adventure Labs. And of course, these geocaches are in different locations too. So when we put these in, we're going to see initially that the numbering that the Cachetur gives shows these waypoints in no particular order. It's just the order that we put them in. All right. After we've put them in, we'll use the sorting and optimizing tool to create an excellent driving route from our start point all through all of these to our end point, and it will be optimized based on one-way streets, based on which side of the road things are on, based on all the smarts that Cachetur has for optimizing a trip. All right.
Nice.
So let's start by putting in waypoints. Now, for any Cachetur trip, you really do need a starting location. That's very important, as is an ending location for your trip. Starting and ending locations are really critical when you're doing trip optimization. All right. So I'm going to copy this start location. I'm going to go back to my Cachetur trip, and you can see that I'm in the bulk add waypoint tool. I'm just going to paste it in, and then I'm going to create a new line. The next thing I'm going to do is copy in my list of GC codes that I want to use. So there's now the 6 geocaches that I want to get along the way. And
because
then I come down
who doesn't go? I mean, you can go on a trip for just Adventure Labs, but you know you are going to add geocaches along the way.
And in this case, there's an Adventure Lab and a virtual cache that are in virtually the same spot. And there's some other cool virtual caches and some nice Earth caches in Kitchener as well that you just can't pass up.
Yeah,
So,
and advanced planning is where it comes in, because you know you're going to come home and you're going to kick yourself if you were just paying attention to Adventure Labs, and you're going to say there was a virtual there and I was standing right there. So
yeah, so just a little tip from me: whenever I'm planning a trip, the 2 tools that I use the most, well, 3 tools that I use the most. I use the Adventure Lab app to see where Adventure Labs are. I use the geocaching app, the geocaching website and filters, because I like looking for virtuals and webcams. So if I'm going to a specific point, I'll look for those things. But I'll also use Project GC and their lab map feature to look for things along my route that I might want to add into my trip. So there are lots of tools out there to help you plan for a trip. Today we're talking about how to put together a sort of an optimized route to then do your trip. So maybe another time we can talk about using things like Project GC to help plan your day too. So back to Cachetur and Adventure Labs. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these 35 Adventure Lab locations. We're going to cut. We're going to paste. And as you can see, we now have a whole bunch of waypoints that we're going to bring into Cachetur. Oops. Oh, one of my GC codes is wrong.
Uh-oh.
So this is a very important feature because it's telling me that I've got an invalid GC code on line 1. And that's because I forgot to put in a semicolon. I used commas in that line instead of semicolons. So it picked that.
It's like you're doing computer programming. You've got to keep all the little dots and dashes in.
Right. And I actually did that intentionally to show everybody that the format is very important, right? So it does say here that semicolon is the only valid separator. Okay. So if there is something wrong, it will give you an error before it brings everything in. And now that I've fixed my error, I'm actually going to use those same coordinates to end our trip. So I just happened to choose a big parking lot in southern Kitchener, where, you know, if you were going out for a day with a few people and you wanted to meet up, again, you know, post-COVID times, but you wanted to meet up and all go in the same car, this would be a great place to meet. All right. So we click add. What did I do wrong this time?
Uh-oh. Technical issues, folks. Technical issues.
Nobody picked it up. I called it meeting instead of parking. So again, these are the specific available waypoints.
It's really tiny, so I couldn't see it.
Yeah, you've got, as Doug said, there are the list of specific, there's probably what, 10 or 12 there of specific things that you can say that are there, and you must use those and no other.
So taking a look at this list is very important. Most of the time I use parking coordinates, I use lab, and I'll use GC coordinates, and that's pretty much it. So now you can see down here, it's accepted at this time, and it's working.
Nice.
We go back to our Cachetur trip, and it's got a whole bunch of waypoints in here. Now, the first thing you note is that it's moved some things around. So my start here isn't first. It's not in the order that I put it in, so it's already started doing some thinking about what the order of these things should be. Before I go and optimize it, I just want to do an eyeball to make sure that my start point and my end point are correct. So in Cachetur, if there's a waypoint that you want to move, you can hover over the number and you'll get this 4 arrow icon. Click on it and drag it to where you want it to be. Let's go check the endpoint and make sure that the endpoint is right. It is. So now that we've got these things in the sort order we want for now, we've got the start and the end in the right place. I'll go up here and I'll tell it to save my sorting. That's very important. Watch for that.
So does that tell you, is it telling you that you found Waterloo Bedrock, the Earth cache?
Yes, that's correct. So in this case, most of the geocaches that I've added to this list are ones that I've already personally found. But that's okay, because if I'm going out with friends, they may not have found them. So when I share this with them, the smileys won't necessarily show when they look at the Cachetur trip, right? So those smileys show for me.
Right. Okay, that's good to know.
Okay. All right. So now that I've saved my sorting order, you can see it still says here 2 and then 1. What I do is I just do a quick refresh. Sorting order has been saved. I do a refresh, and then it comes back up and it's got the numbers in the right order. Okay. If we just scroll down right now to the bottom, you'll see that it's added a number of things. So it's added some summary information saying that there's 36 lab cache locations and there's 6 geocaches.
That looks like an awesome day.
And that looks like there's been a mistake in one of the coordinates.
Uh-oh.
That's a bit of a distance.
Yeah, I'm not driving into the ocean.
So how did that happen?
And now,
Good now.
That's a remnant from when we were looking at the coordinates earlier.
yeah, that's something when I was setting up the Route 66 road trip, and it's what Doug said. You have to have your first and your last correct, because if you don't, it will zigzag all over the place and really mess up the route. So those are important things to have. And when you set up the map, you can catch those little mistakes and, get rid of them.
Right.
No
So in
biggie.
this case, we found that there was a remnant from some previous trial and error that we were doing. I've now deleted that remnant. I'll just do another refresh. It should now come back and say that there's 35 Adventure Lab locations instead of 36.
Nice.
All right, so here we go down here, 35 Adventure Lab locations. Our start and our end is in the right place. But our route, to Dave's point, is all over the map. Even though we're starting and ending down here, where the P is, you can see that the order that these things have been put in, the route is just crazy.
Wow.
So, now that we've added our lab cache waypoints, our geocache waypoints, and our start and stop, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to optimize this trip. Okay? So we're going to click on waypoints, and we're going to click on the sort prioritize waypoint option. That's going to bring us into another screen.
Nope, it
I have
hasn't.
I have to apologize. I put a new antivirus suite on my computer yesterday, and it's a little slower than my last one. So apologies on that. All right. So now we're in the sort waypoints screen. And what you can see here is, again, this list of 43 waypoints that we've got in our day trip. And they're in no particular order. All right. And you can see down here that there's something that says automatic sorting. It says select the waypoints you want to optimize in the list above by pressing mark. Then click the button below, this button down here, calculate and sort, to start automatic sorting. You can sort up to 80 waypoints automatically. Remember that number, 80 waypoints automatically. The route will be calculated using data from OpenStreetMap. Now, keep in mind, we told it that this was a car trip. If you were doing something that was in a large park, you could tell it by foot or by bike, and it would route using different criteria. But again, it says automatic sorting. Select the waypoints you want to optimize in the list by pressing mark. Now in this case, we want to optimize them all. We've put in a start point, and we've put in an end point, and we just want to create the best route to go from A to B to C to D, etc. So here, instead of marking each one individually, we could do that, but that could take a lot of time. What we're going to do is toggle marked. And it actually toggles everything that wasn't marked. So we've now got everything toggled, everything marked. We've got it in the right order for optimization. So we'll just scroll down here. We're going to tell it to calculate and sort by optimal route. And as you can see now, we have a very different perspective on our trip.
Wow, look at that. That's amazing.
That's fantastic.
Right?
Yeah.
So you remember before it was, blue marks up and down, back and forth.
It was like a trackable going back and forth.
Exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
This route, and we can look, drill down. We know that our start and stop is in the same place, so that's one. We can see here, point 2 is now an Earth cache. And if we look around our trip, we can see it's taking us up here to point 3, then point 4.
Oh, they're even numbered.
They are numbered. So now you have a list, right? But what's most important is that we save this sorting because it's actually changed this sorting now, right? You can see number 4 used to be way up at the top. Now it's way down in the list. So it's important that we now save this sorting and prioritization. And when we click save, it's going to go back to the main trip screen. And it's actually reordered everything. So you can see we start at Conestoga College. Then we're going to do the Earth cache, the Kitchener meteorite. The next thing we're going to do is the Waterloo Oktoberfest location called the Schwaben Club. Then we're going to move to one of the KW Trains art and history locations at Rockaway Transit Terminal. Then we're going to move to a different Adventure Lab, pre-Confederation Kitchener tour, etc., etc., etc.
And
so,
if I'll interrupt for a sec. I think maybe you'll bring up this point. And this is where it's important. I mean, obviously you have to do it for the app or the program. But if you're listing the different Adventure Labs in the title, so as you get to them, you know which one to open up on your app to complete that location.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So it's very critical to have both the Adventure Lab name as well as location name in either the waypoint name over here on the left, or in the actual description. So how you do it is up to you. Instead of using these codes like I've done, you could have put Schwaben Club, and then in the description Kitchener Waterloo Oktoberfest, and done it that way. There's all kinds of ways that you can do it, but to your point, Dave, as long as you have the name of the Adventure Lab and the name of the location.
So here's a comment from Jeff at Cache the Line. So if you included multi-cache stages or linear AL stages, you can flag them to keep them in the proper order within the optimized list.
True. That's very good. Thanks for that comment, Jeff. The other thing you mentioned, a multi-cache. So the other thing that you can do with multi-caches is that you can fetch additional information about that multi-cache. Same thing with a mystery cache. So if you have corrected coordinates in a cache, you can grab those corrected coordinates, right? You can also get subordinate waypoints. This particular multi-cache doesn't have any subordinate waypoints, but if you had a cache that had waypoints published with it, you could download those waypoints as well, and then you could use them as part of your optimization.
Where do you hit that button to find that, what you just talked about?
So I believe that if you've got a cache that has those waypoints, I think it's here. One of the options when you
what did
click
you press? That little arrow? Okay.
Yes, there's a drop-down arrow associated to that cache.
All right.
Okay, so we've now done our optimization. We've saved that prioritization. We have some additional information down here that's pretty important.
Sorry, Doug. Before you go on, I think John Ing mentioned that Cachetur can sort the stages of multis as well.
Correct.
And that's what you just talked about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Sorry. Carry on.
So we have some pretty important information down here in the route info section. So it tells us that we're going to be doing a total trip of 222.6 kilometers. Cachetur has calculated that our driving time without stops is 6 hours and 32 minutes, and our driving time with stops is just under 10 hours. All right. So when we look at this, it says Cachetur.no uses a number of factors to estimate how much time it takes to find a cache. Remember, this is highly theoretical and generally will not be correct. In my experience, usually it's overestimated. So usually when I'm executing one of these trips, I'm doing it a little bit faster than it tells me I should be. But that might be because I have a bit of a lead foot. So
does it set the location that you're stopping at a specific time length initially?
There are some defaults.
Defaults.
Stops, and then you can Yeah, so I'm not as familiar with that. I do know that you can go in and change those defaults, and I think you can actually change them by waypoint.
Yeah.
But yes, there are some defaults, and you can change how much time it uses at a particular stop.
Yeah, that's one thing I noticed about using Cachetur, and I was telling Dougie that when we did a trip to the eastern coast of the U.S., and we did a road trip series on that, and you can see that in our video links. I added 2 Earth caches to the road trip, and shared that with the Sparks crew, but the Cachetur can identify how long it will take you to do something. So the Cachetur identified that an Earth cache that I added would take about 2.5 hours to complete, and I'm like, whoa, that is incredible! I haven't got the time for that. So I had to remove that Earth cache from the list because there was no way that in that day that we were traveling that we had the time to complete that. So it'll have to be a future adventure. And I found that for Cachetur to be amazing to be able to tell you that.
It is truly a wonderful little tool. I've been using it for about 1.5 years now, in depth, and there's always something new that I'm learning about it in terms of its capabilities. I recently came across a series of videos from someone in Europe who was planning just these immense trips, and they were including flight information and hotel information and all kinds of other stuff in their Cachetur trip. And it was just incredible what they were doing. So there is certainly a lot to learn with this particular tool, but I hope that what people are seeing right now is that it's not as difficult to get into as you might think.
Yeah.
So, we've been at this for about an hour, and we've been taking our time demonstrating this as we go along. And we've got a 43 waypoint trip that is almost completely planned.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
And you can add, but just by adding a parking thing, you can add bathroom breaks.
Yes.
This is important to make me happy, to keep me in, with that person, whatever she is. Yeah, in good favor with the other half of Cache Canada.
Well, maybe somebody out there knows if you can add a preset time break for potty breaks, right? So maybe there's like every hour, every 2 hours, or whatever it is, right? So
Yeah.
maybe. One thing I want to point out is that when we were in the previous screen, when we were doing the sorting and optimizing, it created a nice little map for us. But when we come back to this screen, it doesn't necessarily translate back into this screen. So here's a little tip. Once you've finished your sorting and prioritization, come down and take a look at the map in your trip. Here where it says automatic routing on, click on it and order a new route calculation. Now, I'll click on that again. I'm using up Cachetur's resources to do 2 route calculations, but that's okay. You would do this after any change to the order of your waypoints. So if you manually moved something around, or if you added something, removed something, or re-optimized it, when you come back into your trip, go and do this automatic route calculation. Now, it does take a couple of minutes, depending on how busy their servers are, before it will route. So what I do is after 30 seconds or a minute, I'll just do a refresh, and just takes a second or 5 or 10. And then I'll look up here in the top right, where my little notification bell is. And you can see up here I've got an orange circle with a 1 in it. When I click on that, it says calculation of route for Cache Canada day trip to Kitchener is complete. So
that's
we now
good to know.
Yeah, and it's pretty important, because if you forget to do this, then you make some changes, you move some things around, and you don't order a new route, it can really play havoc with your day when you actually go to do this trip.
Yeah. I think here's a question that's came up. I think you're going to address this coming up, but Team Goldfinch asked, how do you add bonus caches and then put them into the list after you get the corrected coordinates?
So that's potentially challenging. and it really depends on the nature of what you're doing. There's a couple of strategies that I employ, one of which is I may put the bonus cache into my list. Even though I don't know where it is, I may put it into my list so that I have a placeholder.
Yep.
And then as I'm going along, once I find the coordinates, I may just figure out where that is, right? In terms of my trip, like I'll take a look, I'll put the coordinates into the geocache, see where it is on the geocaching map, and then sort of eyeball it as to my trip. The other potential is that when you're in the field, you could go to the cachetur.no website once you have the coordinates, and you could go through this process, right? You could add it to your list. You could put in the corrected coordinates in Cachetur. You could re-optimize, and then from your app, you could swipe the old one away to delete it, and then re-download that Cachetur trip and carry on. So it's not straightforward, and if there's other strategies that are out there, I'd love for somebody to just put them down. Dealing with those bonus caches can be challenging, right? So one thing I can say is this: when you're dealing with bonus caches, when you're dealing with mystery caches that have a like a field attribute element where you don't know where the final is, and you got to figure it out in the field, or where you're dealing with linear adventure labs and you don't know the order, you have to plan for some flexibility in your day.
Right.
So your Cachetur may come up with a route. You may have to deviate a little bit from that route in order to get things done in the right order, but then you can always go back to your route.
Yeah. So here's a question from KC11. Not sure if I missed it. Say you have 40 stages. Can you tell the length of time it will take to do, say, stage 5 to stage 10, or does it just give you a time for all the stages start to finish?
So one strategy, and I'm not going to get into that strategy today, but one strategy is to create sub-trips. So you could create a parent trip for your day, and then you could create a sub-trip for each group that you want to do, and then you would have those statistics for your sub-trip. So that would be one way to do it.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I haven't figured out quite how to do that yet.
Yep.
So it's a bit more elaborate.
Right. That's correct. There are just an innumerable number of additional things that you can do with Cachetur. I find that. Go ahead, Dave.
As they say in geocache talk, that's for another show.
That's for another show. I find that with the Cachetur, it's best to start slow, right? So, a recommendation would be for someone to pick, 2 or 3 adventure labs, and maybe a cache or 2 in a given area, and plan the trip. You don't even have to go on the trip. The key is just to learn how to use the tool.
Right.
And I can certainly show you the 15 or 20 Cachetur trip plans that I have for places that I can't even get to right now because of border closures. But I do it so that I can learn more about the tool.
And Doug has included his email right there and his name. So if you want to get in contact with him to ask him some questions about this, I'm sure he would invite you to contact him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a couple more things.
Going ahead. Yeah, you've got more things to show us. Yep, go ahead.
Yep, just a few more things. So let's go back to this. So just going to do a refresh because we know that the routing has been done. It may not have changed anything. And again, yeah, so it changed it, right? It came back and it said, okay, now your route info says that you've got just under 3 hours of nonstop driving with about 7 hours of driving with stop time. So it's very important to do that recalculation and then to refresh your trip and make sure everything's saved. All right. So we have this trip. Now the next thing that we wanted to talk about was sharing. So down here at the bottom of the trip, it says that we can invite other participants and people to look at this trip. So I'm going to invite my friend Chris Baker All right. So I just put in his geocaching name, and as you saw, it pulled up a list of geocaching names, and I selected his name from the list. I put a comment in, and I can give him the role of co-host, participant, or observer. Most common, you would give somebody a participant role, but if you wanted them to be able to actually make changes to the trip, you would give them a co-host role. And then I send the invitation. So Chris will get an email, and after he gets the email, he can choose to accept it. If he does accept it, when I go back down here to the bottom of my trip, it would tell me that he has accepted as a participant. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Now, we've got a trip. We've got an optimized route.
Here's a comment from Brent. He's got a good comment. I'll just bring it up for you. Because it is important. Hold on. Here we go. There we go. In order for someone to appear in that list for sharing, they must have already logged into Cachetur.
Excellent point. Thank you, Brent.
Yep.
Yeah, that's correct. Whenever I do a trip with somebody, I always tell them to check their email to make sure that they've gone to Cachetur.no and logged in. So yes, you do have to be a participant, and it does use the API, so you do have to give it permission for a third party to access geocaching.
And that's exactly the same as using Project GC. You just give it permission to access your account.
Correct. Okay. Yep, it's exactly the same thing. So we have a trip. It's been optimized. We have participants. The next thing is, we're going to go out and we're going to do our trip. So although I didn't put this in the list of things to talk about, I will tell you, that you can print this trip out. So when you click on the print icon, you can select all of this information to be included in the trip, like a description, a map. You can tell it whether you want it portrait or landscape, what margins you want. And there's a whole bunch of detailed waypoint templates that you can use. And when you do that, it's going to go out and create something that you can print out or save as a PDF file and put on your phone or on your tablet. And it tells you now the order of things that you want to do, and it adds lots of additional information for you.
There is so much information that it prints out. It's amazing because you can be driving along, and we've done this, and Karen, you can attest to that, is we've been driving along and I say, well, what are the attributes on it? And it's listed right there. Or, the hint or something like that before you actually get to the cache. It's truly amazing.
And you have full control over that information. So if you're a minimalist, you can strip certain information that you don't want in your print. You can create a different template. If you want everything, you can print as much as you want. So you have full control over all of that information. And many people like to have a printout. All right, so for example, you can see here for the Goodies Lane Virtual, it even prints out the parking waypoint. So you have that information too. And now you can go off and navigate to those things however you wish to navigate to them. But there's another way to do this that's even a little bit slicker. So what I'm going to do is switch back to my phone. And just want to make sure that I've saved my trip. Yes, Cache Canada day trip for Kitchener. All right. So on my phone, I've installed the Cachetur.no application. And I think you can see that in the left-hand side.
Yep.
So I've opened up the app. I'm logged in to the app. And I don't have any trips at this point. So I'm going to download a trip. And it's going to go off and look at all of the trips. And like I told you, I have a bunch of trips planned for, things that I can't do yet. But the one that I want to look at is the Cache Canada day trip to Kitchener. That's the one we just created. So I'm going to click on this download icon over here. And it's now downloaded that trip. So when I go back to my trips screen, we can see Cache Canada day trip to Kitchener. I can click on that trip, and now it brings up all of the waypoints in the optimized order that we had created, right? Our starting, our stopping, our lab caches, our our geocaches, everything is in here. And now this app, which is on my phone, I can click on this waypoint, and it brings up a new screen. So we have arrived and departed buttons. We have waypoint information. We have the coordinates. We have the description. But down here, we also have this button called Map. And if I click on Map, it goes off.
That's my
and it
favorite
opens
button.
up. Yeah, it goes off, and you can see here I am in Brampton, right? And it's gone off, and it's found that particular location in Kitchener, and I can click Start, and off we go, navigating to our first location.
So that's the same as the geocaching app, where you can navigate to to your cache.
Correct.
Using Google Maps. I love that feature. I find CGO doesn't have that, so that's why I use the geocaching app. To do when you're at long range from the cache, you just click that Google Maps, boom, it opens up, tells you how to get there, and that's really good.
We'll have to do another show on CGO because I actually use CGO and have it navigate via Google Maps.
Oh really?
Oh really?
Oh really? Oh my gosh! Another show coming up. Look for it in February or March. We're going to learn some new stuff.
So in this case, I'm not going to tell it to start in Google Maps, but the point is I'm in Google Maps, or if I was on an iPhone, I could use Apple Maps. And if I had CarPlay or Android Auto, I could have this display on the console of my vehicle, and off we go. When we get to where we're going, we go back to the Cachetur application, and I always tell it that I've arrived. And the reason I tell it that I've arrived is because it brings up this little box at the bottom, and it tells you about how many caches it knows about. It doesn't know about lab caches, right? But in terms of statistics, but it does know that there are 6 geocaches. But the most important thing is it tells you if you're on schedule and what your estimated time to complete is. Okay, so we've arrived at our parking. When we depart, I click departed at my parking, and you can see now it's changed from a white background to a gray background, meaning that we've completed this particular location. All right, it's set our departure time, and now it says the next thing that we have to go to is the Kitchener meteorite. So, okay, I can go to this one in the Cachetur app, and I open it up, and it tells me about this geocache, right? It's got a GC number. It tells me the DT, and it tells me who hit it and when, and all kinds of other information in here. And we get 3 buttons in this case. We get a map button, which is the same as the one we looked at before. We get the open button, and we get the notes button. We can create notes. So for geocaches, when you're in the cachetur.no app, if you click open, it's going to use whatever your geocaching tool is that you've got set up, and it's going to open it. I happen to use CGO. So there we go. We're in CGO, and I could tell it, here you go, Dave. I could tell it to navigate by driving from CGO if I wanted to. And it's going to pull up Google Maps and tell me how to get there.
Okay, I'm going to show a comment from the chat from Cache Canada. Wow. Or holy doodle.
Holy doodle.
Going to help us with our trips.
That's cool. I have to watch this episode again just to take it all in.
Yeah, and the amazing thing is we've talked about a few things, so it might seem overwhelming, but after doing this once or twice, it becomes pretty much second nature, right?
Yeah.
So we created a trip, we threw a bunch of waypoints in there, we optimized it, we shared it, and now we're using an app to go to it. That's it.
Nice.
So again, we arrived, fantastic. It says, oh, we're ahead of schedule. There's that lead foot again. We got there in no time. And when we're finished, we tell it we've departed. Great. And again, it comes back and it says, all right, you've now finished this one. Now, doing Adventure Labs is a little bit different. So for geocaches, you can pull up the map. For Adventure Labs, you can pull up the map, right? So we go in here, it tells us that this is an Adventure Lab, and it tells us our description, Schwaben Club, Kitchener-Waterloo Oktoberfest. So we know which location and which Adventure Lab we're doing, and it has the coordinates that we put in. So we could certainly click on map, and it would bring up Google Maps, and that would be fine, right? It would navigate us to whatever coordinates we had put in. But alternately, we can go into the Adventure Lab, and we can find which one's Oktoberfest. The Oktoberfest, and we can go into our map and find the Schwaben Club. So now we have all that information. We could tell it from here to navigate, and it would take us to the exact coordinates that the Adventure Lab uses. Or if we're close enough, we can go in to view details and click the little icon to use the compass. Now, we're not going to walk 63 kilometers to get there, but I think you get it, right? You have choices. So you can use the Cachetur app to navigate to whatever coordinates you put in for that location, which is fine. Or you can switch into the Adventure Lab app and use it to tell it to navigate to the location using either your mapping software or the compass. All right, so that's what we would do. We would navigate to the location. We'd pop open the Adventure Lab app. We'd do this location, right? So we'd go there. We would read the description, right? That was one of our tips. We read the description, and then when we get close enough, we answer the question. When we're done, we go back into our Cachetur app. We've arrived and departed. Now it tells us, okay, you're good, and we simply go to the next location. Mm-hmm. Now it says we're doing the transit terminal, the KW Trains Art and History. Oh, okay. So we go back to our Adventure Lab app. We get out of that particular Adventure Lab because that's not the one we're doing next. We go into the KW Train, etc.
Here's a comment that came from John Ing Corset. I posted it before. We're just going to bring it up again. Hold on. When you may enter the settings and make the Cachetur app go to the next waypoint on depressing departed.
Well, that's something I didn't know. Thank you for that.
There we go. This is awesome. You teach and learn at the same time.
It's amazing, and thank you very much, John, for that tip.
Yeah.
That's
so if
great.
you hit departed, it'll automatically direct you to the next waypoint. That's awesome. Thank you, John.
Well, I will have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
So, in summary, and we're not going to go through each and every one of these, but basically in the field, the way it works is you use Cachetur to coordinate your outing. So you've got the trip planned, you run the app on your phone, and you use the app to help you get from location to location. When you're doing the Adventure Labs, you still need to pay attention to which Adventure Lab and which Adventure Lab location you're going to. So you will have to go into the Adventure Lab app and switch out from one adventure to another, right? And
yep.
that's the way it is. But the Cachetur app helps you to navigate in the most optimized way to all of those locations. So if we go back, Dave, to the day that you and Karen did Belleville, if you had this tool, rather than going back and forth across those bridges multiple times throughout the day, yeah. You could have said, I want to start in the west and end in the east and optimize my trip. And there you go. And the only thing that would have been questionable throughout the day would have been linear caches or bonus caches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Awesome. Well,
So
we tried to limit our travel. We did kind of optimize, but this would have made it a lot easier to have the program figure out one step to step to step. And create it a lot quicker. Although at that time when we did that trip, it was on the fly. It wasn't something that we had set up ahead of time. But Kitchener especially, we started doing the couple of caches that we mentioned to you, the 5, and we just realized because they overlapped so much, there was no sense in trying to figure out how to do them all at the same time without using Cachetur. Yeah.
So, what we've gone through today is a way to throw together a day to visualize what that day might look like in terms of an optimized route, and then to use a tool to help you actually execute your trip. Now, keep in mind, just because we've optimized this trip doesn't mean that we have to stick to this order. So, for example, if we knew in Kitchener there might be, say, a good place to get a brew, we might want to add that. Yeah, we might want to add that to our trip as a waypoint, right? So we might want to say, hey, you know what? Regardless of this optimized trip, around lunchtime or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to go off here to do that. So we
have to change the default setting for that one.
Yeah, probably. You guys might have to change it for a lot longer than some of us too. Yeah.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Kitchener Waterloo has a lot of craft brewery places to visit. So, yeah, and our good friends there, the Sparks crew, they love craft brew, and so do we. So we'll have to meet there. So yeah, carry on, Doug. We'll add that into the trip.
Absolutely. So that's the point. Is you don't have to stick to the optimization. You can reorder things to your heart's desire. If you take a look at this, and I've done this sometimes, and say, hey, that doesn't make sense to me. I know this area, or I've got a buddy who lives nearby. I will go in and reorder things manually after the optimization to suit me, and you can do that too.
Yeah. Now, if you manually organize it later, that you save that, but if you hit that button again, it'll overwrite what you saved, right?
So if we were to go in, let's say that we wanted to reorganize this, and let's say that we knew that this particular multicache, Doc's Book of Monsters, let's say that we knew that was in a library, and we knew that the library was going to be closing early on the day we were there. We could choose to move that way up in our list.
Okay.
We could say, okay, we're gonna move that up, way up in our list, and do that as our second. Well, we're going to do it as our third waypoint because we know the meteorite was right at our parking. Now, without doing anything else, we could save that. And now that we've saved it, we refresh it. And it brings it up and says, okay, now Book of Monsters is our third location. And then we would scroll down to our map. We would ask it to do a new route calculation. And after 30 seconds or a minute, we would do a refresh and we would have a totally different map. And that might be okay, because that's what we wanted to do. We said, you know what? We know this one needs to be done sooner in the day. And then we're just going to go back and follow the previous optimization. Alternately, we could go in and re-optimize by leaving those first 3 waypoints unmarked. So we could just optimize everything else. And it would then say, oh, well, if you're going to start at that multicache, then everything from that point on gets optimized in this format. So you have complete control over the order that things are done. You do not have to follow the optimization that Cachetur provides.
Nice. So is there anything else that you wanted to cover in this demonstration? I'm sure we could come up with a completely different show, or an additional show to add to it.
So I want to summarize a few things and then make a couple of quick points. So first is creating a Cachetur trip is really not that difficult. There's lots of people out there who know how to do it. It's straightforward, start simple, right? Just go in, create a trip, throw a few geocaches in there, learn how to do the optimization, learn how to do the route recalculation. Very straightforward. Second, those Adventure Lab location coordinates, I showed you two methods to figure out coordinates. And as we said, there's potentially a way to use GSAC that we're just starting to hear about. Would love for anybody who knows about that to either get in contact with Dave or get in contact with me. And maybe we can do another show down the road about using GSAC to get those coordinates.
Here's a question. Sorry, before you continue.
Sure.
Here's a question that popped up. As much as you knew it closed early because you know the area, what if you got to the point and you didn't know it closed early? Can you skip the location? I think you could just click completed and move on.
Yeah.
Right?
So if you want to bring my screen back up.
Yep.
So let's choose, this virtual. Let's say for whatever reason we couldn't get into that virtual. So we can go in and say that we can ignore that waypoint.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Yep.
So
that was a question from Craig Lato.
Right.
So thank you.
So we can go and ignore that waypoint, and you can see here that it's X'd out the estimated time.
Nice. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. So the only thing that I wanted to add at the end is once you've done all your sorting and optimization and you've shared it, again, you can print out the trip or you can use that Cachetur smartphone app. And that smartphone app coupled with the optimization is, for me, what really makes an easy day of going out and doing Adventure Labs. And I think it's just an incredibly powerful little tool to help enjoy the day better.
Nice. Thank you so much. This is, we've been on for over an hour and 45 minutes, and I think people have stuck with us, and they're going to enjoy this episode once it's been published, so it's not live. People are going to be watching it and absorbing so much. And I know Karen and I are going to be watching it again and trying to figure out how to complete this,
pick up all
this
the
trip.
bits you missed.
Yeah.
No, this has been fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you, Doug, for an awesome show. Tracy Hubert, one of our friends there, we all know her, said it's been really helpful. And
Glad to help.
I think we'll have you on again for some nuances to the program once we complete the tour and once we're able to leave our health unit and travel abroad. We're going to complete this trip, and then we'll have you on again to report out on what we did and how we worked it out, and show you our trip. So,
I'll throw this out for you, Dave. Once some of the pandemic restrictions have been lifted, let's plan a trip together and actually execute it together.
That would be awesome. That would be really cool.
That would be great because we could hit a lot of the breweries as well.
I would so love to cache with you, Doug. I know we've cached, we've seen each other here and there a little bit, but that would be awesome to cache with you.
That'd be fantastic. So thanks very much for having me on the show today. I'm glad that I was able to share. I'm sorry it went a little bit longer than we thought, but
that's okay. I think people enjoyed it. They absorbed so much. We have another. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Yeah, we have another giveaway to do before we leave. We have one, and it's a trivia question. This came from Doug. This is for one of the IB geocaching packages giveaway. The rest of the prizes that we have will be taken from all of the people that commented. We will collect all your names, put it into a file, and then we will also take everyone who commented online on YouTube once this is published. So you have two chances to win because we're going to put in both. But this one right now is a trivia question from Doug, and we're going to give this one away right now. This is for an IB geocaching prize. So here we go. This is the trivia question. First person to answer. I'm looking at the YouTube comments to see who's winning. So here's the question. What Cachetur feature is used to load multiple Adventure Lab geocache locations info into a trip at one time? So there you go. That's the question. We need an answer. Pick me. We can't win.
I know.
Oh, you know. That's good. So you've been paying attention. That's awesome. Now, the question is, Oh, we have an answer. I think it's from Jason Collier. Answered bulk add waypoints. Doug, is that the correct answer?
That is correct.
That is correct. So Brent was second with bulk add waypoints, J and LA bulk, and Roger Sanderson bulk load, bulk import, bulk import. There you go. So thank you, everybody. I think Jason Collier, there you go. You are the winner for this IB Geocaching prize. Awesome. So we will make sure we get that out to you. Please make sure, Jason, that you email londonwesty at londonwesty@gmail.com to make sure we get your address. We can send that out to you. So thank you, Doug, for that question. That was awesome.
So just for me, the only last thing I wanted to say was if anybody wants to reach out to me for questions in the geocaching app, Dougie B, or via email, dougieb.gc@outlook.com.
Nice.
Thank you so much. This has been really informative.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And we have so many people from all over the world that watch us. We are just amazed. And here's one from Glennis Alfregeld. Hello from New Zealand. Sunday afternoon here. New Zealand is in for some great adventure labs. That's awesome. We're so overjoyed. One of the things that I've noticed when the latest couple of episodes that we've done, I've added some of my trackables, is the comments that I get in my email that from people that watch our show that we don't know watch our show, because they don't comment on YouTube, and then they tell me where they're from, and it's just so heartwarming to know that so many people are watching Cache Canada from all over the globe. It's so cool. So. And we're glad that, Doug, that you can join us and be part of the Cache Canada thing and give everybody so much cool information. So
I'm happy to help.
Thank you so much. So,
my pleasure.
All right. So we're going to end out. We're just going to close off with a little bit of a thank you video. And we're going to say to everybody, thank you so much. We're going to be having another live stream in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking with... hold on, I got to remember his name. With Brian from Cacher's Corner Store. We're going to be talking about hiding a geocache and how to write up a cache placement. So we're going to be taking a look at, I'm going to be working through the program of actually hiding a cache. Because a lot of people, I've noticed on Facebook, on geocaching, there's a lot of new people and they don't know a lot of the information. So we're going to be taking a look at that. And then we're going to be doing a live unboxing of one of Brian's new little adventures that he's got from Cacher's Corner Store. So look forward to that. And I'm sure going to have Doug back again as we do another thing. And I hear Blake in the background. He's just yearning to go out caching again. He's just waiting. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you again. And next week, next Saturday, watch for CacheCon from Geocache Talk and GCHQ. It's a very cool adventure. I'm gonna do a live video on a Wednesday in place of a 1 minute Wednesday. It'll be a little bit more than 1 minute. 1 minute. And we're going to be talking about that thing. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. No episodes coming from Cache Canada next week because we're going to be paying attention to CacheCon. So thanks again, Doug. Awesome information.
Thank you, everybody. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.